She married a human for peace and shone like a star in war. HFY Stories, the galaxy was not quiet. For decades, the stars had witnessed war after war, conflict after conflict, as empires expanded, collapsed, and fought over territory that seemed endless. Among these empires, none had been as proud or as advanced as the Zerath. Their cities floated in orbit, their fleets could outpace most rivals, and their minds worked with precision and clarity humans could only admire from afar. Yet even the greatest intelligence could not ignore the unpredictable, chaotic species called humanity. Liara, a daughter of the Zerath royal line, moved with careful steps through the ceremonial hall. Her long, silver robes shimmered under the lights, each thread a mark of her people's heritage. She had been raised for this moment, trained in diplomacy, strategy, and the subtle arts of negotiation. Yet today her heart did not race with excitement. It raced with doubt. She was about to marry a human, not out of love, but for peace. The humans were an unusual species. They lacked the grace and perfect coordination of the Zerath. They relied on emotions, improvisation, and courage that sometimes seemed reckless. Yet these very traits made them powerful in ways the Zerath could not fully calculate. For years, humans had resisted, adapted, and survived attacks from empires that thought they could crush them easily. Liara had seen reports of human leaders turning near-certain defeat into victory, not by strength alone, but by creativity and determination. Her companion walked beside her, an aide, smaller in frame, eyes full of concern. "Are you certain about this?" they asked, their voice soft but urgent. "The humans will expect more than appearances, and your council will watch your every move." Liara took a deep breath, calming herself. "I am certain," she said. "I am doing this for peace, not for me. If I can stop another century of war, it will be worth it." The hall opened to a breathtaking view of the stars. Delegates from both sides had arrived. Humans in their practical uniforms, machines humming quietly at their sides, and Zerathians in their elegant attire, poised and perfect. For a moment it was quiet. For a moment the galaxy seemed to pause and watch. Then Commander Elias Drake entered. Unlike the polished Zerathians, he carried himself with a casual confidence. His uniform was clean but not extravagant. His eyes, deep brown and alert, scanned the room as if assessing not only the delegates but the air itself. He was aware of the expectations, aware of the weight of history resting on his shoulders, but there was no fear. There never was fear, not for him. Liara's first thought was that humans were strange creatures. They did not move with the precision of the Zerath. Their expressions were full of unpredictable subtleties, yet something about Elias impressed her. There was calm, but also energy. There was thought, but also courage. She realized suddenly that this was why humans had survived so long against opponents far more technologically advanced. They were never predictable, and that made them dangerous in ways the Zerath had learned to respect. The ceremony began. It was not lavish in the sense of extravagance, but it carried the weight of centuries of politics, alliances, and careful calculation. Liara and Elias approached each other. Their eyes met, and for a moment words were unnecessary. They were strangers bound by duty, yet aware that their actions could save or doom thousands. When they exchanged formal vows, Liara noticed something unexpected. Elias did not speak with cold diplomacy. He did not say what was expected. Instead, he spoke simply, clearly, and with respect. "We may come from different worlds," he said, "but we share this galaxy. We share the chance to make it better. I will do my part. I hope you will do yours." Liara, taken aback, realized she did not need to be impressed by ceremony. She needed to judge him by his actions. And in that moment she sensed something rare: sincerity. A human could be sincere and brave in ways that even the Zerath, with all their training, sometimes failed to be. Days passed after the ceremony. Liara and Elias learned to live together in a palace that was more machine than architecture, more technology than comfort. The humans had little experience with such environments. They bumped into doors, pressed the wrong buttons, and sometimes startled automated servants. Yet Liara found herself laughing quietly at these small mistakes. For the first time in years, she felt more human than alien. Elias, too, was learning. He observed Liara's rituals, her careful attention to protocol, and tried to match it where necessary. But he also introduced small changes, simple gestures that seemed meaningless but carried weight. A shared meal at odd hours, a conversation about nothing in particular, a willingness to question the rigid order of Zarathian life. Slowly, mutual respect grew, shaped not by ceremony or politics, but by shared curiosity. But peace is never simple. Reports came of factions unhappy with the Union. Some Zarathians whispered that Liara had betrayed her people. Some humans doubted the sincerity of the Zerath, and lurking in the shadows, enemies who thrived on conflict prepared to strike. One such attack occurred at a human colony on the edge of known space. It was small, a test more than a full assault, but enough to create panic and fear. Liara acted. She did not summon a fleet, nor did she demand vengeance. She used her influence, her knowledge of Zarathian politics, and her understanding of human resilience to mediate a solution. A compromise was reached that prevented loss of life and sent a clear message. Humans and Zarathians, working together, could protect each other. For the first time, humans realized that these aliens, so perfect, so advanced, could also act with restraint and honor. Elias watched her from across the council table, quietly impressed. Her decisions were precise, effective, and humane. She reminded him, in small ways, why humanity's greatest allies could sometimes be the most unexpected. Her mind worked like a machine, but her heart understood life. And Elias, a human accustomed to struggle and adaptation, recognized in her a partner, someone whose brilliance could complement his own. Over time, the small moments mattered more than the grand ones. A shared laugh over a misunderstanding in language. A conversation about strategy that revealed how differently humans and Zarathians approached the same problem. A silent understanding that, despite appearances, they were building trust that could shape the galaxy. Liara began to appreciate human creativity. Where Zarathian minds relied on certainty, humans thrived in uncertainty. They adapted, they experimented, they took risks others would not dare. She saw the power of courage paired with ingenuity and realized that humans had survived not because they were the strongest, but because they refused to be predictable. Elias, in turn, admired Zarathian intelligence. Liara's strategies, her foresight, and her ability to anticipate every variable reminded him that humans could learn and grow. If humans could combine their creativity with Zarathian precision, the possibilities were endless. Despite the political tension, despite the whispers of distrust, they began to trust each other. And as trust grew, so did hope. If two beings from different worlds with different ways of thinking could work together, perhaps the galaxy could do the same. Perhaps the wars could end not by destruction, but by cooperation and respect. As the days passed, Liara and Elias often walked among the stars, watching fleets of ships maneuver in orbit or listening to reports from distant colonies. They spoke little, yet understood much. Their silence was not awkward, it was comfortable. In that quiet they found something neither had expected: companionship. Not romance in the stories of old, but partnership in its purest form. A partnership that could challenge empires, defy expectations, and perhaps even bring peace to a galaxy tired of war. And then, one evening, as they observed a distant planet glowing softly in the light of its sun, a small transmission arrived. It was a request for aid, not from humans, not from Zarathians, but from a neutral species caught in the crossfire of decades of conflict. They had no weapons, no power, and nowhere else to turn. The message was simple: help us, or we will be destroyed. Liara and Elias exchanged a look. Neither spoke, yet both understood the choice. They could ignore it, remain in the comfort of their palace, or they could act. And acting was exactly what they did. The mission was simple in words, but complex in execution. It required coordination between humans and Zarathians, careful negotiation, and the use of intelligence rather than force. Liara directed the operation with calm precision. Elias organized the human teams to adapt to unexpected variables, and together they saved the lives of thousands. For the first time, the galaxy began to see what such a union could achieve. It was not just diplomacy or ceremony. It was proof that humans and Zarathians could combine strengths, complement weaknesses, and achieve what neither could do alone. As the stars shone above, Liara reflected quietly. She had entered the marriage for peace, expecting duty, expectation, and perhaps loneliness. Instead, she found respect, challenge, and the possibility of something far greater. And Elias, practical, unpredictable, and human, was not just a partner in title. He was a partner in thought, action, and vision. The galaxy was still uncertain. Factions opposed to peace still plotted. Challenges would rise, some greater than any they had faced before. But in this moment, the impossible seemed possible. Two species, bound by a single choice, had begun to shape the future. And as Liara looked at the stars, she knew one truth that would guide her through the trials to come. Humans were unpredictable, brilliant, and capable of greatness. And now she was part of that story. And so the first chapter of peace began, not with the end of war, but with the courage to act, to trust, and to shine together in a galaxy that had forgotten the power of hope. The stars had barely settled into their nightly patterns when a new challenge arrived. Liara and Elias, now accustomed to their unusual life together, were summoned to the war room, a massive chamber filled with holographic displays of distant worlds, fleet positions, and reports of crises across the galaxy. Unlike the polished efficiency of the Zerath, the room carried the organized chaos of humanity, charts rearranged by hand, overlapping reports, and constant movement. Yet amid the activity, there was clarity. There was purpose. Liara scanned the reports, her mind processing the information like a machine, yet understanding the human stakes behind each number. Thousands of lives were at risk on a neutral planet called Neria, caught in the crossfire of rogue factions resisting the newly forming peace. The humans had built small defenses, improvised barricades, and communication networks that surprised even the most experienced Zerathian observers. Yet these measures were fragile. If the rogue fleet succeeded, the colony would be destroyed. Elias stood beside her, leaning over the same holographic map. "We don't have time for hesitation," he said. His voice was calm but firm. "The humans on Neria are clever, but they can't hold against a coordinated attack from these factions without support." Liara nodded. "Then we coordinate," she said. "We combine our strengths." For the first time, she felt a rush of excitement that was not fear, not duty, but something else, possibility. This was why she had married a human, why the union mattered. Humans were unpredictable. Humans were clever. Humans could shine when the odds seemed impossible. The plan was simple in principle, but intricate in execution. Liara would lead the negotiation with neutral and friendly factions, persuading them to avoid the conflict or assist in defense. Elias would organize the human teams, ensuring adaptability on the ground. Together, they would create a network of protection for Neria that relied not on raw power but on intelligence, timing, and human ingenuity. For days, they worked tirelessly. Liara sent messages across star systems, carefully phrasing her words to appeal to reason, honor, and practicality. She found herself admiring the human way of thinking, the cleverness behind improvisation, the creativity that allowed solutions where Zerathian logic sometimes failed. She realized that humans did not simply act. They reacted, adapted, and innovated in ways that made outcomes unpredictable, even to the most calculating minds. Elias, meanwhile, oversaw the coordination of human forces. They were scattered, limited in resources, and yet flexible in approach. Where the Zerath relied on exact plans and flawless execution, the humans used creativity. They built small devices to confuse enemy sensors. They rerouted power from empty colonies to shield vulnerable settlements, and they communicated in ways that often left enemies baffled. Liara observed these efforts with fascination. She had not expected humans to blend courage with innovation so seamlessly. One evening, as they reviewed the progress, a minor complication arose. A supply convoy bound for Neria had been intercepted, not destroyed, but delayed by a rogue fleet using unpredictable tactics. Elias frowned. "We need a new approach. Waiting will cost lives." Liara studied the situation. Her mind ran through scenarios, predicting each possible outcome with precision. Then she paused. "We don't have to fight them directly," she said. "We can redirect them, create confusion in their ranks, let them exhaust themselves chasing shadows." Elias tilted his head. "You mean mislead them?" "Yes, humans think creatively, but sometimes you need Zerathian foresight to see all angles. We combine your adaptability with our predictions, and the enemy will fail before they even engage." Within hours, the plan was executed. Liara coordinated communication channels, sending false signals to the rogue fleet. Elias organized rapid response teams to shift supplies covertly, using minor decoys to draw attention away from the real routes. The operation was tense, requiring constant adjustments, but it worked. Convoys arrived safely, and the human colonists of Neria were spared. The success earned Liara quiet admiration from the humans and respect from her own people. She realized that this was the essence of HFY, the human way of overcoming challenges with ingenuity, courage, and moral clarity. The Zerath had power and precision, but humans had the spark that turned strategy into life-saving action. Days turned into weeks, and the joint efforts of Liara and Elias became legendary across allied colonies. Small victories accumulated, rogue attacks prevented, negotiations resolved peacefully, and fragile alliances formed where none had existed before. Yet with each success, the threat of larger challenges loomed. The coalition of alien factions opposed to the peace treaty was growing restless. They observed the humans' unexpected capabilities and the influence Liara wielded and began to prepare for a confrontation. Despite the looming threat, Liara and Elias found moments of calm. One afternoon, as they floated in the observation deck of the flagship watching distant stars, Elias spoke quietly. "Do you ever wonder what it would be like if this war never happened?" Liara smiled faintly. "I try not to think of it. Peace is always built on the ruins of conflict. But sometimes, yes, I imagine a galaxy where we could share knowledge without fear, where humans and Zerathians could learn from each other without suspicion." Elias nodded. "We're getting there. Slowly, but we are." His gaze drifted to a distant planet bathed in sunlight. "And your people, you've changed too. The Zerath may be precise, but they've never had to adapt like humans, and now they're learning." Liara considered his words. Perhaps that was the hidden power of humanity. Not their strength, not their courage alone, but their ability to inspire others. Even she, a Zerathian trained for a lifetime in calculation and diplomacy, was learning to adapt in ways she had never imagined. She smiled, not just at Elias, but at the idea that humans could change the galaxy, not through destruction, but through cleverness, empathy, and determination. The first test of their combined efforts came when a neutral world requested assistance. The planet Orvin was rich in resources, but threatened by internal conflict between factions who mistrusted both humans and Zerathians. Elias and Liara were dispatched to mediate. Unlike Neria, Orvin presented not just logistical challenges, but cultural and political ones. Misunderstandings could escalate into disaster if handled poorly. Liara approached the delegation with her usual calm, precise demeanor. She spoke with respect for their traditions, acknowledging past grievances while highlighting the benefits of cooperation. Elias observed, offering human insights where subtlety alone might fail. They discovered that Orvin's factions responded not to authority, but to tangible demonstrations of fairness and ingenuity. Together, they devised a solution. Resources were allocated based on need rather than status. Disputes were resolved with creative compromises that had not been considered before. And when an unexpected crisis occurred, a natural disaster that threatened part of a settlement, human adaptability saved the day. Elias organized volunteers to assist with evacuations and repairs using improvised tools, while Liara coordinated supply chains to maximize efficiency. By the end of the mission, the Orvinians had a new respect for both humans and Zerathians. Liara's reputation grew. She was not just a diplomat, but a problem solver whose decisions saved lives. Elias, as always, was quiet in pride, recognizing that humanity's greatest gift was not conquest, but the ability to act when rules failed, to adapt when circumstances changed. Back on the flagship after the Orvin mission, Liara and Elias reflected on their journey. "I did not expect to find joy in this work," Liara admitted. "I expected duty, responsibility, and perhaps exhaustion, but there is something thrilling about this. About seeing humans shine in ways even the Zerath could not predict." Elias chuckled softly. "You mean you enjoy watching us improvise and succeed?" "Exactly that," Liara said. "I admire it, and I admire you for leading them so well." Elias looked at her with a mixture of respect and fondness. "We make a good team," he said simply. "Yes," Liara agreed. "Perhaps the galaxy needed both of us, not just one or the other." Even in these moments of quiet, challenges continued to arrive. Rogue factions attempted small incursions, trade disputes threatened fragile alliances, and distant empires watched with suspicion. But Liara and Elias were no longer just a symbolic marriage. They were a partnership. They combined human unpredictability with Zerathian foresight, creating solutions that neither species could achieve alone. As new intelligence arrived of a coalition forming against them, the stakes grew higher. Liara studied the reports, her mind racing through possibilities. Ilias stood beside her, calm, observing the data, ready to adapt to any situation. Together, they planned not for destruction, but for ingenuity, strategies that would protect lives, secure alliances, and demonstrate that humans were not to be underestimated. The galaxy, once dismissive of humanity, was beginning to take notice. Humans were clever, adaptable, and brave. And under the guidance of Liara and Ilias, they were proving that strength could come not from force alone, but from wisdom, cooperation, and creativity. As the stars shone above the flagship, Liara and Ilias knew the journey had only begun. The path ahead was uncertain, filled with challenges that would test every skill they possessed. But for the first time, they felt confident that together, humans and Zarathians could face any obstacle. They were learning, growing, and inspiring those around them. And the galaxy was beginning to see that the most unexpected alliances could shine brighter than the fiercest empires. It was not just peace they were building, it was hope. And in that hope, the galaxy found its first glimmer of a future where humans, unpredictable and brilliant, the calm that had settled over the galaxy was fragile. Liara and Ilias knew this better than anyone. While humans and Zarathians celebrated small victories, a growing coalition of alien factions, unwilling to accept peace or a human-Zarathian alliance, quietly organized. Their aim was simple: show the galaxy that humans were not to be trusted, that Liara's influence was dangerous, and that their combined efforts could be crushed before they gained real strength. For Liara, the threat was immediate but manageable. She did not panic. Her Zarathian training allowed her to process information quickly, see multiple scenarios, and plan accordingly. Ilias, relying on human adaptability, prepared to respond to unpredictable variables. Together, they were more than the sum of their parts. The first sign of the coalition's challenge came in the form of an urgent transmission from the colony planet Velora. A rogue fleet, small but coordinated, was attempting to blockade supply routes, cutting off resources to the planet. The humans on Velora were clever, but lacked the technology and coordination to maintain long-term defenses against even a modest blockade. Liara and Ilias convened a council with both human and Zarathian officers. Liara projected a holographic map of the sector, pointing out supply lines, potential weaknesses, and the likely positions of enemy fleets. Ilias added human insights, improvised strategies, resourcefulness in unconventional ways, and tactics that the enemy would not expect. "We do not fight them with destruction," Liara said calmly, "but with intelligence, coordination, and adaptability. We use what humans do best, thinking beyond the expected, adapting to what the enemy cannot predict." Ilias nodded. "We make them overthink. We turn their strength against them." The plan began with subtle maneuvers. Human teams on Velora used simple but effective strategies. They created decoy convoys using drones and holographic projections, confusing the rogue fleet and drawing attention away from the real supply ships. Liara coordinated communications with neighboring friendly planets, redirecting civilian cargo to maintain the appearance of disruption while securing essential resources. The rogue fleet attempted to respond, but every step they took seemed anticipated. Humans improvised, finding creative solutions when unexpected problems arose. When a sensor network on Velora was disrupted, human engineers quickly rerouted energy from local stations to restore communication. Liara adjusted their defensive positioning to take advantage of the human response, maximizing efficiency while minimizing risk. Days passed. Each small action built on the last, creating a chain of clever maneuvers that frustrated the rogue fleet. Liara observed closely, fascinated by the way humans adapted without rigid planning. While Zarathians relied on predictions and precise control, humans improvised, testing different approaches until success emerged. It was brilliance in motion, a demonstration of ingenuity that could not be replicated in any simulator. Ilias admired her focus. He had seen many leaders, many strategists, but few matched Liara's combination of intelligence and calm judgment. She anticipated, she adjusted, and she guided without imposing. Under her direction, humans worked with a confidence and creativity that inspired even the most cautious officers. Then, a new complication arose. A natural phenomenon, a solar flare from a nearby star, threatened to disrupt the communications of the entire region. For many, this would have been a disaster, but for Liara and Elias, it was an opportunity. Humans adapt to change, Elias said, eyes on the flickering holographic map. We can use this to our advantage. Liara smiled faintly. Yes, let's see how creative they can be under pressure. They quickly reorganized supply lines and communication networks, relying on human ingenuity and improvised technology. Humans built makeshift relay stations, recalibrated sensors using local resources, and rerouted critical data through unconventional channels. The rogue fleet, expecting predictable targets, found itself facing empty decoys and disappearing signals. By the time the solar flare ended, supplies had reached Velora safely, and the rogue fleet's plan had completely failed. This success spread across the galaxy. News reached distant planets that humans and Zorathians had protected Velora without firing a single destructive shot. The Coalition, previously confident in their superiority, began to doubt their approach. Humans were not only resilient, they were clever, adaptable, and impossible to predict. Liara's leadership and Elias' coordination made the human potential shine in ways that no enemy could have anticipated. Yet Liara and Elias knew this was only the beginning. Larger challenges awaited. The Coalition's leadership had noticed the repeated failures, and they would not stop. They were capable of more coordinated efforts, and their ambition was dangerous. As they prepared for the next phase, Liara reflected on what she had learned. Humans were unpredictable, yes, but that unpredictability was paired with a moral clarity. They did not seek unnecessary harm. They used intelligence, creativity, and courage to protect lives rather than destroy them. It was a concept unfamiliar to many advanced empires, which relied on overwhelming force. Humans thrived not by power alone, but by cleverness, collaboration, and a willingness to act when others hesitated. Elias, meanwhile, continued to observe her in quiet admiration. Liara had become more than a diplomat. She was a tactician, a problem solver, and a symbol of hope for both humans and Zorathians. She could see beyond the immediate, anticipate challenges, and guide her allies with precision. Together, they were not just a marriage for peace. They were a force that demonstrated the value of intelligence, morality, and cooperation. The next challenge came in the form of a resource crisis on the industrial planet Kyrth. The Coalition attempted to manipulate the planet's governing council, spreading misinformation to incite panic and rebellion. Liara and Elias acted quickly. Rather than confronting the Coalition with force, they devised a strategy to empower Kyrth's population through information and ingenuity. Liara coordinated efforts to verify reports, clarify misinformation, and provide guidance for effective resource management. Elias organized human volunteers to assist local engineers, helping them repair equipment and maximize efficiency. Through careful planning and adaptive solutions, Kyrth avoided chaos, stabilized its supply chains, and sent a clear message to the Coalition. Human-Zorathian cooperation was capable of outmaneuvering even complex schemes. As the successes accumulated, the reputation of Liara and Elias grew. Humans began to see themselves as capable of extraordinary feats when guided by intelligence and collaboration. Zorathians began to appreciate the value of adaptability, improvisation, and courage beyond precise calculation. Across the galaxy, observers noted a new pattern. Humans were rising, not through brute force, but through brilliance, strategy, and moral determination. Amid these victories, Liara and Elias shared quiet moments of reflection. One evening, as they observed a peaceful planet from the flagship's observation deck, Elias spoke. "Do you ever realize what we're doing? It's not just protecting colonies, it's teaching the galaxy something important." Liara nodded. "Yes, humans are more than we imagined, and perhaps the galaxy is learning too. Brilliance, courage, and morality can shine brighter than force alone. And it begins with trust, cooperation, and creativity." Elias smiled. "I've always believed in human potential, but seeing it in action alongside you, it's more than I imagined." Liara's gaze drifted to the stars. "And this is only the beginning. The Coalition may strike again, stronger and more coordinated, but we have shown what is possible. If humans and Zorathians continue to work together, we can face whatever comes next." The first major engagement with the Coalition arrived sooner than expected. The coalition attempted to blockade multiple planets simultaneously, testing the limits of human adaptability and Zorathian strategy. Liara and Elias immediately coordinated a galaxy-wide response. Humans on each planet used creative solutions to maintain supplies, establish communication, and anticipate enemy movements. Liara oversaw the entire operation, adjusting strategies in real time as conditions changed. The coalition, confident in their superior technology, was unprepared for the combination of human unpredictability and Zorathian foresight. Supply lines remained open, colonies stabilized, and panic was avoided. The operation became a model of nonviolent conflict resolution, emphasizing intelligence, ingenuity, and collaboration over destruction. Through each challenge, Liara's admiration for humanity deepened. She saw courage, creativity, and morality in action. Humans thrived in adversity, not because they were strongest, but because they adapted, collaborated, and acted with clarity. Elias, too, recognized the growth in Liara. She had become more than a diplomat. She was a strategist, a leader, and a symbol of what could be achieved when intelligence was paired with moral purpose. By the end of the campaign, the coalition was forced to retreat, not through violence, but through frustration and the realization that humans, guided by vision and creativity, could achieve the impossible. Across the galaxy, observers began to respect humans not as a primitive species, but as one capable of brilliance, resilience, and leadership. As Liara and Elias returned to their flagship, the stars stretched endlessly around them. Liara spoke softly. Humans can shine in ways the galaxy has not seen, and perhaps one day they will inspire others to do the same. Elias looked at her, admiration in his eyes. They already have, and so have you. In that moment, the galaxy understood a simple truth. Brilliance was not measured by weapons or fleets, but by creativity, courage, and collaboration. Humans, unpredictable and resourceful, had shown that even against the most advanced enemies, intelligence and morality could prevail. And as the stars shone above, Liara and Elias prepared for the challenges ahead. The coalition was only the beginning. Greater obstacles would rise, but humans, with their unique brilliance, would continue to shine, and the galaxy would take notice. For the first time, the HFY spirit was not just a concept. It was real. It was visible. It was unstoppable. The galaxy had grown accustomed to small victories, yet Liara and Elias understood that the challenges ahead would be far greater. The coalition of alien factions opposed to human-Zorathian cooperation had been humiliated repeatedly. Their attempts to disrupt colonies, blockade supply routes, and manipulate resources had all failed, not by force, but by intelligence, creativity, and collaboration. The coalition's leaders, once confident in their superiority, now began to view humans as a threat, not a threat of war, but a threat of ingenuity and inspiration. Liara stood on the observation deck of the flagship, gazing at the distant systems where the coalition was mobilizing. Her mind calculated possibilities, weighing both strategic and human factors. Unlike other Zorathians, she had learned to consider not only data and logic, but creativity, adaptability, and moral clarity. These were qualities humans possessed in abundance, and under her guidance, they could become the galaxy's most powerful asset. Elias joined her, his expression calm, his human intuition sensing the tension beneath the surface. "They are organizing again," he said. "But we've already seen their strategies. We know how they think. Now it's our turn to guide the galaxy in a way they cannot anticipate." Liara nodded. "We will not fight them with weapons. We will outthink them, outmaneuver them, and protect life wherever possible. That is the lesson humans bring, and it is what makes them exceptional." The first challenge emerged on the industrial planet Ravora, a hub of resources vital to the coalition's operations. Rogue factions attempted to destabilize the planet by disrupting communications and spreading misinformation. The human colonists were clever but lacked the ability to counter such coordinated efforts alone. Liara and Elias acted immediately. Liara coordinated a network of communications, connecting human engineers, Zorathian analysts, and neutral observers. They established redundant channels, ensuring that even if one system failed, information would continue to flow. Elias worked directly with human teams, teaching them to adapt to changing circumstances, improvise solutions, and think creatively under pressure. The coalition attempted to manipulate the media and messages sent to Ravora's population, hoping to incite panic. Liara, understanding the psychological aspect, countered by distributing accurate, verified information, highlighting the collaborative efforts protecting the planet. Humans on the ground used simple but effective strategies to reassure their communities, building morale and confidence. A solar storm disrupted sensors in the sector, creating chaos. The coalition saw an opportunity to escalate their plans, but Liara and Elias remained calm. Using both Zarathian foresight and human adaptability, they rerouted communication networks, deployed emergency relay stations, and ensured that supplies and messages reached all critical locations. The coalition's attempts to take advantage of the storm failed entirely. During this crisis, Liara noticed something remarkable. Humans did not simply react to events, they experimented, tested possibilities, and adjusted continuously. When one solution failed, they tried another and then another until success emerged. It was a kind of brilliance that Zarathians respected but could not fully emulate. Humans could solve problems dynamically, not rigidly. Elias observed her reaction and smiled quietly. "You're impressed," he said. Liara shook her head. "No, I am inspired." Humans are remarkable not because they are stronger, but because they think differently. They adapt, improvise, and act with courage and integrity. The coalition's next move was subtle but ambitious. They targeted multiple planets simultaneously, aiming to stretch human and Zarathian resources thin. Liara and Elias saw the plan and devised a counter-strategy. Instead of reacting to each threat individually, they created a network of cooperation among planets, allowing humans and allies to share resources, knowledge, and strategies instantly. Humans on each planet used ingenuity to respond to challenges. On Velora, engineers converted energy from abandoned structures into temporary communication hubs. On Kyrth, volunteers created improvised transportation systems to maintain supply routes. On Orvin, communities established rapid response teams to assist in emergencies. Each action was small but collectively powerful, preventing the coalition from achieving its goals. Liara coordinated these efforts with precision. Her ability to anticipate problems, combined with human creativity, created a level of organization the coalition could not predict. By the time the alien factions realized what was happening, their plans had already failed. No destruction occurred, no lives were lost, and yet the coalition's influence weakened significantly. Amid these events, Liara and Elias continued to grow closer, not through romance alone, but through mutual respect and shared purpose. They learned each other's thinking, anticipating reactions, complementing strengths, and covering weaknesses. Elias admired Liara's calm decisiveness and intelligence, while Liara respected his courage, adaptability, and human insight. Together, they became a model for cooperation, showing the galaxy what humans could achieve when guided wisely. As the campaign continued, news of their successes spread. Humans, once underestimated, were now recognized for their ingenuity, creativity, and moral clarity. Colonies began to adopt human-led strategies, combining local knowledge with innovative tactics inspired by Liara and Elias. The coalition's image suffered as their repeated failures became widely known. They had assumed humans could be easily intimidated or outmatched, but instead, human brilliance proved superior in nonviolent ways. One evening, after a long day of planning, Liara and Elias observed a star system at the edge of coalition territory. The planets shimmered like jewels against the black expanse of space, and Liara felt a sense of purpose deeper than any ceremony or title she had ever known. "This is what it means to shine," she said softly. "Not with weapons, not with power, but with intelligence, courage, and integrity. Humans are capable of greatness, and now the galaxy is seeing it." Elias nodded. "We are only the beginning. The more people see what can be done with intelligence and collaboration, the more the galaxy will change, and humans will lead by example." Liara smiled faintly. "I never thought I would feel this way. I entered this union as a duty, a means to an end. But now I see purpose, hope, and a future that neither humans nor Zarathians could achieve alone." The coalition, sensing its diminishing influence, attempted a bold move. They tried to sow discord between humans and Zarathians by spreading rumors and creating artificial crises. Their hope was that mistrust would fracture the alliance, allowing them to regain control. Liara anticipated this. She convened a council of both human and Zorathian leaders, openly discussing the coalition's tactics, verifying facts, and demonstrating transparency. By addressing concerns directly, she built trust among allies and prevented misinformation from taking hold. Humans, observing her clarity and integrity, reinforced the network she had established, ensuring communication remained uninterrupted. Elias, recognizing the psychological element, organized teams to support affected communities. Volunteers traveled to planets where rumors were most effective, engaging directly with populations, clarifying information, and demonstrating cooperation in action. The coalition's efforts failed yet again, their plans exposed not by violence, but by honesty, intelligence, and human creativity. The success of these operations marked a turning point. The coalition's power waned, while humans and Zorathians gained credibility and influence. Liara and Elias had shown that even a small species could outshine a seemingly superior enemy through ingenuity, adaptability, and ethical action. Colonies began to emulate their methods, creating a galaxy-wide network of collaboration that further undermined the coalition's control. During a rare moment of rest, Liara reflected on the journey so far. She had married a human for peace, expecting duty, protocol, and obligation. Instead, she had discovered a partnership that transcended titles, a union that demonstrated what humans could achieve. They were not perfect, nor were the challenges over, but she had witnessed brilliance, courage, and moral clarity that inspired everyone around her. Elias joined her on the observation deck, watching the stars with quiet determination. "Do you realize how far we've come?" he asked. "The coalition is on the defensive, humans are gaining respect across the galaxy, and we're only getting started." Liara nodded. "Yes, and the lessons we are teaching will outlast any conflict. Humans will continue to shine not because they are stronger, but because they think, adapt, and act with integrity. That is the true power of our species." Together, they observed a distant system, knowing that greater challenges would come. The coalition was not defeated entirely, and other forces in the galaxy remained skeptical or hostile. Yet Liara and Elias had demonstrated something critical. Humans could lead through intelligence, creativity, and moral courage, showing that even in a galaxy accustomed to power and violence, there was another way. The victories of Ravora, Velora, Kyrth, and Orvin were not simply battles won. They were proofs of concept. They proved that human brilliance could outmatch assumptions of superiority, that adaptability could triumph over brute force, and that integrity could inspire collaboration across worlds. Liara had become more than a diplomat. She was a symbol of cooperation, intelligence, and hope. Elias had become more than a commander. He was the embodiment of human ingenuity and courage. As the stars stretched endlessly before them, Liara and Elias prepared for the next phase of their mission. The coalition would not give up easily, and new challenges would arise. Yet they were confident. Humans had shown that they could shine in ways the galaxy had never anticipated. With cooperation, intelligence, and moral clarity, they could face any obstacle and continue to inspire those around them. The galaxy was beginning to see a new kind of heroism. One that did not rely on destruction, intimidation, or fear, but on creativity, collaboration, and courage. Humans, under the guidance of Liara and Elias, were becoming the exemplars of this heroism. And as Liara watched the stars, she realized that the journey she had begun as a duty had transformed into something greater. She had married a human for peace, yet together, they had created a force that could illuminate the galaxy, not with weapons, but with brilliance. The HFY spirit had grown stronger than ever, and its light was visible to all. The galaxy held its breath. After months of careful coordination, brilliant strategies, and inspiring acts of courage, the coalition of alien factions was preparing its final gambit. They believed they could fracture the growing alliance between humans and Zorathians, that fear, distrust, or confusion would tip the balance in their favor. But Liara and Elias, seasoned now by trials and successes, knew otherwise. Their journey had taught them many things. Humans were not the strongest, not the most precise, but they were unpredictable in the best ways, creative, adaptive, and morally grounded. The Zorathians were powerful and analytical, yet capable of learning from human innovation. Together, they had formed a partnership that the galaxy could not ignore. Liara convened a council of leaders from human colonies and Zarathian sectors. Holographic maps hovered above the table, showing fleet movements, planetary resources, and coalition positions. She spoke with calm authority, each word carefully chosen but sincere. The coalition believes they can outthink us. They underestimate human ingenuity and the value of collaboration. We will demonstrate that intelligence, adaptability, and integrity are more powerful than fear and aggression. Elias, standing beside her, added his voice with quiet confidence. We will act when necessary, improvise when required, and protect life at every turn. This is what humans do best. This is what our partnership shows the galaxy. Their plan was not about overwhelming force. It was about coordination, timing, and clever thinking. Humans on each planet would create temporary communications hubs, reroute resources, and provide rapid solutions to problems designed to confuse the coalition. Zarathian technology would ensure accuracy in logistics, and Liara's insight would anticipate coalition strategies before they were enacted. The coalition made their move. Multiple fleets attempted to blockade trade routes and isolate key planets. They expected chaos, but what they found was order, creativity, and cooperation. Humans adapted to every obstacle, rerouting supplies, using decoys, and maintaining communications despite technological disruptions. Liara coordinated these efforts with precision, adjusting plans as events unfolded. One striking example occurred on the planet Sciria. A coalition fleet attempted to isolate the planet's energy production, hoping to force surrender through resource deprivation. Human engineers, led by Elias, devised an improvised solution. They tapped into old, abandoned energy grids, rerouted power from non-critical sectors, and maintained essential operations. Liara guided them remotely, adjusting energy flows and anticipating potential failures. By the time the coalition realized what had happened, their blockade had failed entirely. Across the galaxy, similar stories unfolded. On Velora, human volunteers created temporary bridges between settlements to transport resources efficiently. On Kyrth, engineers repurposed local materials to reinforce critical infrastructure. On Orvin, communication networks were stabilized using clever combinations of Zarathian technology and human improvisation. Each action was small, but collectively, they demonstrated the power of intelligence, adaptability, and moral leadership. The coalition, frustrated and unable to predict the outcomes, began to falter. Their confidence in advanced technology and superior numbers did not account for the creativity and ingenuity of humans, nor for the careful guidance of Liara. Time and again, their plans failed, not due to confrontation or destruction, but because human brilliance, guided by insight and collaboration, proved superior. During this campaign, Liara and Elias became symbols of hope and inspiration. Humans admired their leadership, seeing that intelligence and courage could achieve extraordinary results. Zarathians learned from human adaptability, appreciating the value of flexibility alongside precision. Across planets and fleets, allies grew more confident, motivated by the visible success of creative, ethical action. One evening, as Liara and Elias observed a sector of space dotted with colonies and fleets, Elias spoke quietly. Do you ever realize the significance of what we're doing? We are changing the galaxy's view of humans. Liara nodded. Yes, they are seeing what humans can do when trust, collaboration, and ingenuity guide their actions. We are showing that strength is not only in weapons or fleets, but in creativity, courage, and moral clarity. Elias smiled. And they are learning that by working together, humans and Zarathians can achieve what neither could alone. The coalition, desperate to regain control, attempted one final maneuver, to isolate the flagship and cut off communications between human and Zarathian sectors. They believed this could create confusion and mistrust, forcing errors that would lead to surrender. Liara anticipated this. We will not let fear or separation succeed, she told Elias. We will use this as an opportunity to demonstrate how humans adapt under pressure. Elias nodded. He organized rapid response teams on nearby planets, creating relay systems using improvised technology and human ingenuity. Civilian engineers and volunteers coordinated efforts to maintain communication, reroute resources, and support operations despite the coalition's interference. When the coalition attempted to isolate the flagship, they found that their actions were anticipated. Humans had created decoy communication signals, improvised backup networks, and maintained critical coordination. Liara adjusted fleet positioning and resource allocation, ensuring that every sector remained operational. Once again, the coalition failed, not because of power, but because humans and Zarathians had combined intelligence, creativity, and collaboration. News of the coalition's repeated failures spread quickly. Across allied colonies, humans and Zarathians celebrated not only survival, but the demonstration of a new kind of strength. The galaxy began to understand that human ingenuity, when guided wisely and applied ethically, could achieve extraordinary results. In the aftermath of this campaign, Liara reflected on her journey. She had entered the marriage expecting duty and obligation. She had imagined herself as a symbol, a bridge between species. Instead, she had discovered something far greater, a partnership that demonstrated the power of intelligence, morality, and creativity. Humans, she realized, could shine not because they were the strongest or most precise, but because they adapted, collaborated, and acted with courage and ingenuity. Elias, observing her from the observation deck, spoke softly. "You've seen it too, haven't you?" "Humans are remarkable," Liara smiled. "Yes, but more than that, I've seen how partnership, trust, respect, and collaboration can change the course of the galaxy. It is not humans alone, nor Zarathians alone. Together, we are stronger." The coalition, finally recognizing the futility of their efforts, began to retreat. They had underestimated human potential and the effectiveness of collaboration between species. Humans, guided by insight, creativity, and ethical leadership, had proven that even a species once considered primitive could outshine the most advanced empires in ways that mattered most, preserving life, solving complex challenges, and inspiring hope. Liara and Elias were celebrated not only as leaders, but as symbols of possibility. Across planets and sectors, humans and Zarathians alike recognized that cooperation, intelligence, and moral courage could achieve what weapons could not. The galaxy had witnessed brilliance in action, and it would not be forgotten. During a quiet moment, Liara reflected on her personal journey. She had married Elias for peace, expecting duty and obligation. She had imagined ceremony and protocol. Instead, she had found inspiration, partnership, and a demonstration of human brilliance that changed the galaxy. Elias joined her on the observation deck. "Do you think they will remember this?" he asked, gesturing at the stars. Liara nodded. "Yes. They will remember that humans can shine in ways that matter. That intelligence, creativity, and moral courage can change the galaxy. That cooperation and partnership are more powerful than fear or force." Elias smiled. "And they will remember you as well. You showed that guidance, insight, and calm decisiveness can allow humans to reach their full potential." Liara felt a warmth she had not expected. She had entered a marriage for duty, yet she had found purpose, admiration, and a partnership that exemplified the best qualities of both species. Together, they had proven that human brilliance, combined with guidance, could outshine even the most advanced opponents in the galaxy. As they observed the stars stretching endlessly before them, Liara spoke softly. "The galaxy will remember this time, Elias. Not as a story of war, but as a story of intelligence, creativity, and courage. Humans will shine, and they will inspire others to do the same." Elias nodded. "And we will continue to guide them, to show that brilliance combined with ethics and collaboration can shape the future." The galaxy was beginning to change. Colonies had learned to solve problems creatively, communicate efficiently, and cooperate across species lines. The HFY spirit, the brilliance, adaptability, and courage of humanity, was visible not only to those who fought alongside humans, but also to those who had once doubted them. Liara realized that this was the true reward of their work. Not recognition, not power, but the knowledge that humans had proven their potential to shine, to inspire, and to lead in ways that mattered most. The galaxy had seen that intelligence, courage, and collaboration could succeed where force and intimidation failed. Elias spoke quietly, almost to himself, as they watched the stars. "They will remember this. Humans will shine." Liara smiled, her heart filled with hope. "Yes, and we will continue to show them how." The coalition faded into the background, their influence diminished not by violence, but by ingenuity, cooperation, and moral clarity. Humans had shown the galaxy what they could do. They had proven that unpredictability, creativity, and courage were strengths, not weaknesses. And under the guidance of Liara and Elias, they had illuminated the path toward a brighter, cooperative, and intelligent galaxy. As they prepared for the next chapter of exploration and partnership, Liara felt a deep sense of fulfillment. She had married a human for peace, yet she had discovered something far greater: the ability to guide, inspire, and witness the brilliance of an entire species. Humanity had shone like a star, and the galaxy had taken notice. And as Liara and Elias watched distant stars, they knew that the HFY spirit would continue to grow. Humans would continue to shine, to inspire, and to lead, not through power, not through fear, but through intelligence, courage, and creativity. For the first time, the galaxy truly understood the meaning of human brilliance.